What is going on, everyone? My name is Boit, and I'm back with some more Age of Mythology, the extended edition action. This is the Road to 2K series, episode number 2, where I will be aiming to get to 1800 from the 1700 level. The first game seems to be a little bit of a hint into the third episode. I match up against an 1850 player on Mediterranean with Hades against Zeus. So I'm full try-hard mode, do not want to lose at all. Generally, at the 1700 level, players are still not quite used to water maps. They've kind of got their land build orders down a little bit, but when they're on the water, it tends to not go in their favor. So I'm going to play to that a little bit. 1800 players, on the other hand, little bit better. So we're just going to be feeling out what the other player is going to be doing, do some very aggressive scouting, and see if we can take advantage of some not efficient play from our opponent. As a quick note for build orders for you Greek players out there on this map, you only really need to put 4 villages on food before you start going really heavy on the wood. You can put anywhere from 4 to 7 villages on wood depending on how boomy you want to go. 4 villages on wood is your aggressive 410, 5 villages is more like 430, and then so on and so forth for later and later advances with more and more fishing ships. I go for the 5 villages on wood strategy, aiming for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Then I'm going to transfer around about 7 villages over to gold and the rest onto wood, and then build a second dock. This is going to allow me to put a lot of pressure on the water very, very fast. I pick Ares so I can use Pestilence to give myself even more time because I don't have access to Hermes, which is really good on this map because it means you can cast that and then get some time to go for that fast second town center or fast heroic. Hades doesn't have either of those options, so we're going to pretend like Ares is kind of ceasefire. At about the 440 mark, when he has an advantage to the classical age, I jump into his base and I start trying to count how many villages he has on wood, what he's doing with his temple, if he has any economic upgrades. Seeing the one villager on favor kind of made me feel like he might have been going for a fast heroic with Scala spam, so I was like, well, there's no way I can win that fight, so I need to start transitioning into second town center, third town center maybe even if he does that, and just boom really, really hard. He advances to the classical age at about 6 minutes and 20 second mark. It's super late. I'm already building my second town center, so I feel really, really good about where my economy is going to be, even if he does decide to go fast heroic with a bunch of Scala and take the water back from me. I choose to wait on the Pestilence because I want to see him build a ship and then use it just in case. I'd rather you cast the Pestilence when he hits heroic age if he does. Then I see a ship and I go, okay, it's time for Pestilence to be cast, and he's obviously not going for that fast heroic at this point. He casts Ceasefire after the overwhelming pressure. It's a little bit late and the damage has already been done. At this point, I'm transitioning into land in order to put some pressure on him. As gold mines start expiring in the next couple of minutes or two, I want to have really strong forward presence, so I send a couple of villages forward as well and start spamming my units. I'm not too worried about getting to the heroic age at this time, just simply because the pressure on the land is probably going to be more important. I do chuck up my armory preemptively though, might be able to get a PS upgrade or something just to put that extra amount of pressure on my opponent. After the ceasefire ends, we have a little bit of a naval fight where I think I had come in with a few more boats than he does, and then with just a little bit of micro, pulling back the ships that are getting attacked, eventually succeeding with it and dragging his ships into mine. I can deal a lot of damage when he's not. Then I got my land army picking off his docks, and there's no way he can defend against that when he's putting so much resources into the triremes. I also send a couple of my Toxotos over onto the wood line, and once they get there, there's not a very good chance he can defend against that. In essence, I think the big difference between what I was doing and what he was doing was I was just so much faster than him. I got to his base before he was in the classical age. I was building a second town center as well before I got to the classical age. So if you're looking to improve your game and you see yourself doing these 6 minute plus advances on Mediterranean, no, it's a super fast map. You want to get there faster to the classical age and see what you can do when you get there. In the next game, I match up against Gaia with Zeus. I love playing against Gaia, especially when I get gods that have access to very strong myth units. In general, Atlanteans struggle against myth units simply because they have to spend so many resources to get heroes, and if they don't have access to valor, it's even worse, which is kind of why Gaia is considered one of the weaker gods. So as Zeus, you kind of have two options. You can either go with the Minotaurs or you can go with the Centaurs. It just kind of depends on how you want to play the game. If you want to be super aggressive, go Minotaur. If you want to be very raid heavy, go with the Centaurs. You have to be super careful as well against Atlantean, simply because they can put so much pressure on you in the early game, which means you should probably aim to get to that classical age faster than you would against other gods. For example, the 4 villages food, 3 villages wood, 2 villages gold start, and then the rest of food. It's very, very strong. Gets you there at like 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and then you can start putting on pressure straight away. I get to the classical age at 4 minutes and 30, or just after, build my Jason straight away, and then my Odysseus, and then I chuck down a stable. You always want to get your heroes out first, because they're going to be able to build before your stable gets up and then be moving to your opponent's base. So if you want to put that pressure on straight away, get your heroes out first, then your military buildings, and then get that spam happening. Also, I got a Minotaur training as well. A little bit slower than the 2 heroes to get out, but still gets up before the stable. As soon as you hit your opponent's base, you're looking for villages first, and then towers around your enemy's gold mine. If you can pick off the watchtower or the sentry towers before they turn watchtowers, then it's really easy to gold starve. At this point, I've managed to keep my opponent off gold for a good 2 minutes. I'm also getting really far ahead in the military, just off 2 stables, and also building a Minotaur whenever I can afford it. This is going to allow me to put a really strong attack onto his town center at some point in the next 2 minutes. As you can see, it's just kind of brutal what you can do to a Gaia player if they're not ready for this kind of aggression. Generally, the Gaia players want to cast some Gaia Forest around their important locations, so you can't so easily get through there. But this restoration comes down, my Minotaur are back to full HP, so they're going to deal so much damage to this town center, and it's just going to fall with no time at all. My opponent gets some hero oracles, but just with a little bit of micro, you can just grab your Hippocon, pick those off, and then you're going to be golden. Generally, when you take out your opponent's hometown center, they're going to resign. This player, on the other hand, he wants to fight to the end, and he actually forces me to make a mistake because I just get complacent. I should have sent my units around to all the town centers on the map. Instead of that, I managed to basically just bash down the rest of the buildings, thinking he doesn't have any villages anywhere else that he's sent off. I see the town center go up on the minimap, and I send my army over there immediately in order to try and finish this game. I'm also going to the Mythic Age through Hera, so I'll be able to cast Lightning Storm and kill off pretty much everything he's got left if he has any sort of army. And then essentially I can just send my army in. Once it's all set up with all these myth units, no amount of towers is going to be able to kill off all of these units. Can cast Bronze, it's going to be totally fine and the game's going to be over. Gaia can be super strong when left to her own devices because her economy is so wildly strong that you can just build so much stuff and get so far ahead in the tech. But if you get aggressive, you rush, you can really deal a lot of damage to your opponent super early and force them to be on the defensive, and it's very difficult for them to come back. In the next game, I match up against Ra on Oasis. This is pretty much Ra's favourite map, especially on Extended Edition, because you get very nice hunt at the start, you always get a good amount of goat on the map, and you also get fantastic chicken spawn and gold spawn. So that being the case, as Zeus, you're going to want to try and do a couple of different things. One is to match your opponent's economy by going for that second town center, or 2, to attempt to control all of the food sources. You want to basically go for that Athena play with Hoplite Toxito, put on insane pressure, and try and kill their town center off before they get too out of control. I don't fully remember, but I think in this game I decided to go for the fast 2 town center play blind. But generally what you want to do is scout out your opponent's outside gold mines before you click the advance button. If you see really crummy outside gold mines, then going Athena and putting on that really aggressive play is going to be your best bet. But if you see that they have very defensible gold mines, going Hermes, getting that second town center super early and booming and trying to play for your late game is probably the better idea. The other thing about trying to scout your opponent's gold mines out early is you might be able to grab their goat, which really hurts that Ra player that's scouting with his pharaoh early. Might be able to bolt the pharaoh and then take all the goat on the map, and you're going to have very strong economy. But you can see I don't do that. I scout my side of the map first, and thus a blind Hermes. Not a bad play, but it's just not the best way to play the game. I think I stuffed my build order up just a little bit. Generally, I think you can afford to get that second town center at the 4 minutes and 30-second mark, but I'm a little bit behind on that. I think if you can take something away from that, it is that build orders are important, but if you don't do them right, so long as everything else is going correct in terms of constant villager production and trying to do your strategy as best as you possibly can in the situation you put yourself in, you're going to be fine if you stuff up here or there. Attacking a Ra player is super hard. They can often defend super easy with their watchtowers, so in general what I try and do is force them to stay one town center. So I want to position my army so that if he sends villagers over to one town center, I can then just deal with it essentially. So I've got a couple of units on both town centers. If he sends anything over there, I send the rest of my army over there, and I'm completely fine to stop him from getting that second town center, keep my advantage, and then continue the game. One thing I don't like about the early fast second town center play is you generally don't have the population that you would normally have until something like the 10-minute mark. And before then, if you're still trying to put on that same amount of pressure as you would if you were on the first one town center, you're going to find yourself in a bit of a difficult situation. It's just a little bit of a takeaway that I noticed from playing this game. Just like normally at this point in the game, I'd be able to be attacking my opponent's towers without too much worry, but at this point I have to sit back and hope that he comes out and deals with me that way. Unfortunately, my opponent decided to GG at the 8-minute 45 mark. I'm not 100% sure why. I question marked him, said GG, put a frowny face because I like playing the game. I don't just like winning for no reason. And perhaps he just felt like he just didn't have the right stuff, and he saw my army coming over and decided to tap out. But anyways, let's move on to the next game. I run into the same guy again, which is unfortunate. He resigns straight away. It's very annoying, but I should have just held off on queuing up again. And that's what I'm going to do in the future if someone just resigns early. Just not queue up again. I queue up and run into an Odin player, which is always fun. It's always nice when you get to play against some of the lesser played gods. I roll Uranus though, so that's a little bit unfortunate, and I don't really know too much about Uranus apart from standard play, so I'm just going to play this game how I see all the other players play it. Grab my economic guild, get hunting dogs, go 430, build Promethean, Terma, Mermillo, or even just Promethean, Terma, go for that fast Titan Age, and see how you go basically. Standard build order for Uranus is 1 villager on wood and gold after 2 villagers on food, and then the rest on food. And then you switch all your food village except for 2 onto wood, and you put 1 more villager on gold. So pretty standard. I place my counter barracks down straight away, get my Promethean offspring. By deleting my Promethean, you get faster Promethean offspring, and you can send them to your opponent's base faster in order to start harassing them a little bit earlier. Also, you can split them up into multiple different groups and scout even faster, but I prefer to keep them together just in case I find something. I can do a little bit more damage. I also start auto-queuing my Terma. The big thing about this race that I've noticed is you need to be able to get your manas up at the right timing. Oftentimes your timing gets stuffed up with auto queue, so you got to be on top of it, be thinking ahead a little bit and get those houses up in the right point. You always want to try and cast your Valor as to also get one of your villagers involved. If you cast a Valor on 3 military units with a villager close by, you're going to be able to get an extra hero. My opponent casts Forest Fire onto my wood villagers, which is a little bit of a pain. I do have my heroes around to deal with the Valkyrie that is impending though, so I'm going to have to send them over there to defend against them. I do build a mana to keep my villagers safe, but with that unit attacking me, I'm not gathering resources, which is never fun. Once all of that early game shenanigan harassment's over, I can start focusing on stuff that I find fun, like multi-group raiding. One thing I kind of do like about the Titans is that you can send your armies off into multiple different directions and do quite a bit of damage. I cast Shockwave on my opponent's villages in order to kill off a couple more. Shockwave is such a strong god power for just that reason. His units would have got away for free there, but I managed to pick off 2, and that's always nice. 2 or 3 actually. It looks like I managed to pick off 3, which is really nice. Not only that, because he's cleared his natural defenses around his gold mine, I can essentially just sit in that location and put an incredible amount of pressure on his home gold mine, and then essentially get a really easy gold starve. If you ever see these natural defenses, definitely don't chop them down. You want to leave them there so that you can have those to defend. I spot my opponent moving villages out to get that gold mine, and once I catch them, it's going to be super difficult for my opponent to keep getting gold. That being said, I only sent a couple of units over there, so we can defend for at least a little bit while that's going on. Chuck my armory up, and I'm looking to go to that next age, get that second town center, all the other shenanigans that comes along with hitting that 115 population. My opponent built the right units in building raiding cavalry, but they just kind of build so slow, and if you're not like really on top of it, you can pretty much beat the army with just Terma, which is a little bit silly, but raiding cavalry take an insane amount of time to build, Terma don't, so you can just outmass your opponent really, really easily and then take games off them with the wrong counter units. In my graduation game to 1800, I get matched up against an Uranus player with Hades. Uranus is very different to playing against Gaia simply because he has access to Uranus, so you can't just do really aggressive myth unit play. You have to kind of be a little bit more sly, but the same thing applies. Get your early heroes out, and then you can deal good amounts of damage early on. So that means 4 minutes and 30 is the aim. 2 villages on gold, 3 villages on wood, the rest on food. Advance super fast, get your heroes out, deal that damage. I don't know why I built my temple in the back of my base. I guess I get scared playing against Uranus simply because he can put so much pressure on early, and I don't want him to be able to kill my temple off for free. But generally you want to put your temple forward so that your myth unit spawn is close to your enemy base and you can deal a little bit more damage a little bit earlier. Also, in hindsight, I have access to Sentinels, which pretty much makes any early pressure moot, just because you can cast it and they can't really do anything without losing their units. Like the Gaia Zeus game, I do exactly the same thing. I'm looking for villages and I'm looking for towers that defend good resources like gold or wood. If I pick those off, then he can't just get watchtowers defending against it. So at this point, we're just looking for those locations before we decide where to attack. I get super lucky and he has a very forward gold mine. That means I can just leave my Chiron there, set him to passive stance, and then leave him to stop my opponent mining there forever. I grab the early second town center while the pressure goes on, also find his food villages and then get a little bit of fight going on here. I don't think his villages win this fight anywhere close, so I pick off a couple of villages for free there, which is quite nice. As you can see, it's just kind of pretty bonkers how much damage you can put onto a Uranus player with just a Ajax, a Chiron, and a Minotaur. So if you ever play against Atlantean, just remember to get those early 2 heroes out, put that pressure on, you're going to be fine. My opponent gets watchtowers up pretty fast, but at this point it's maybe just a little bit too late. I can start going for that 1-1-1 with stables, archery ranges and the like, and then he's going to have to somehow defend against that when it starts coming. That being said, I did go for that second town center, so my military buildings and military force is very slowed down. But my economy will be skyrocketing ahead of my opponent, which is kind of like the safe way to play. I spot him sneaking a gold mine a little bit further away from his home base, and then I can just simply start sending my military units over there. He's not going to be able to grab that gold mine. I do need to scout the other side of the map though. There's quite a bit of black on the map, which isn't good, especially when opponents start playing sneakily. At this point, I've pretty much managed to gold starve. I've still had access to restoration. My Chiron almost gets picked off, so I cast restoration just to save him. And my opponent decides to tap out. It says GG. It's kind of difficult to play against this strategy as Uranus. You have to be very, very proactive with your building placement and see it coming. But as Greek, just go for it. Put that early pressure on, you're going to do fine. If you enjoyed this series and you want to see more, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you like about the series and if you'd like to see more of my gameplay in general. My name's Boit, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.